People don't leave all at once, they leave slowly. I'm 73 years old, and I want to tell you about the day she packed her suitcase. She didn't scream, she didn't cry. She just folded things carefully, like she had known for a long time exactly what she would take. A sweater, a photograph of the kids, her toothbrush. I stood in the doorway and watched. And do you know what I felt in that moment? Surprise. Not pain, not fear, just surprise. Because up until that second, I was absolutely, completely, 100% certain she would never do this. She was too responsible, too devoted, too good. She wasn't the kind of woman who leaves. I was wrong, and here is the thing that haunts me. I wasn't wrong that day. I had been wrong every single day for 26 years. That day, it just finally became visible. I wasn't a bad husband. That is important to understand. I never hit her, never cheated, never drank. There was money, there was a house, the kids were fed and clothed. By every point on that invisible checklist men carry in their heads, I was fine. I worked hard, sometimes very hard. But I told myself, this is for the family. Isn't that love? Getting up at 6 and coming home at 10 so they have everything they need? I told myself that and I believed it. Meanwhile, Barbara was up at 6, right alongside me, and she went to bed after me. While I was out earning, she was living our life for both of us. She handled the school runs, the doctor appointments, and the sick cat. I would come home and say I am exhausted. She would say dinner is on the stove, and I would sit down and eat. It took me 26 years to understand. She was exhausted too. She just never said it because she knew I would not ask. See, that's the trap I fell into. A trap built from a checklist I carried in my head for over 2 decades. I convinced myself that being a good man was simply a matter of avoiding the big sins. In my mind, I was doing everything right because of the things I didn't do. I never raised my hand to her. I never looked at another woman. I never let a bottle of whiskey become more important than my responsibilities. To me, that was the gold standard. I was providing, wasn't I? There was always money in the bank. There was a roof over our heads that I made sure was solid and renovated. I measured my love in hours worked and bills paid. I'd get up at 6 a.m. and I wouldn't walk through that front door again until 10 p.m. I told myself every single day, this is for them, this is for the family. I wore my exhaustion like a badge of honor, a silent testimony to how much I cared. But that was my biggest mistake. I thought love was a transaction where I traded my time for their comfort. I thought as long as the kids were fed and the shirts were ironed, the engine of our life was running perfectly. What I didn't see was that while I was out earning a living, Barbara was the one actually living our life. She was the one holding the invisible threads together. She dealt with the school runs, the endless doctor appointments, and the parent-teacher nights. She listened to my mother's complaints and sat up late helping with math homework. She was managing the leaking faucets and the sick cat while I was busy feeling important at the office. I was checking off boxes on a list of economic duties, but I was completely absent from the soul of my own home. I was physically present, a statue in the living room, but I had left her to be alone for the last 10 years without even realizing it. I provided the house, but I let the home turn cold because I forgot that a marriage isn't a business contract. It is a living, breathing connection that starves without attention. I started looking back at the wreckage, searching for the exact moment it all broke. I couldn't find just one, because there wasn't one. Instead, there were thousands of tiny, almost invisible moments where I simply chose not to show up. There was an evening about 8 years ago that stays with me now like a ghost. Barbara came into the kitchen and sat down across from me. She wasn't there to serve dinner or ask a question. She just sat there, her hands folded on the table, looking at me. I could see out of the corner of my eye that she wanted to say something important, something that might have changed everything, but I didn't look up from my phone. I didn't forbid her from speaking, I just didn't acknowledge her existence. After 5 minutes of my silence, she stood up, said good night, and left. I might have grunted a response, but I didn't truly hear her. That was my pattern. I offered a distracted grunt or a "that's nice" instead of my heart. I remember when our daughter was 12, Barbara wrote a poem. She held out that piece of paper, offering me a glimpse into her soul, and I barely glanced at it before turning my eyes back to the television. She never showed me another poem again. I had taken something real, she offered, and handed it back like it was junk. Then there was the morning she told me she had been suffering from a headache for 3 days. My response was a dismissive, "Take a pill." I didn't know it was a small stroke. She had been walking around with that pain for a week, afraid to bother me. When a person is afraid to bother you with their pain, that isn't respect. It is a cold, enormous distance. I was too busy watching the screen to notice the wall of ice building up between us. I thought being fine meant no shouting, but the truth is, the quiet was the sound of her giving up on me. That wall of ice didn't appear overnight. It was built brick by brick, moment by ignored moment. I eventually realized the biggest lie I ever told myself was that because she wasn't leaving yet, everything was fine. But people do not leave all at once. They leave slowly, in stages that are almost impossible to detect if you aren't truly looking. It starts with the small things. They stop telling you about the funny thing that happened at the grocery store or a strange dream they had the night before. Then the silence grows. They stop sharing the important things, the fears and the ambitions that used to fill the space between you. Eventually, they stop waiting for you to ask how they are, and then they stop hoping you are even interested. From the outside, my life looked perfectly normal. There was dinner on the stove, my shirts were ironed, and the house was clean. To our neighbors, we were a success story. I even had a friend who bragged about how his wife never made a scene, calling her easygoing, but then she left him on their 18th anniversary, quietly, without a single argument. He told me he never saw it coming, and back then, I just nodded along. Now I know the truth he couldn't see. It wasn't fine. She had just long since figured out that showing her pain was pointless. A quiet wife is not a happy wife. A quiet wife is a woman who has given up inside the person standing right next to you. It might have been silent for a very long time. By the time she actually packed that suitcase, she had already been gone for years. I was just the last person to find out. I had mistaken her silence for peace, when in reality it was the sound of a woman mourning a relationship that was still physically there but emotionally dead. She lived beside me for 26 years, but for the last 10 of them, she was completely alone. After she left, for the first time in my life, I was truly alone. This wasn't the fleeting loneliness of an empty office or a quiet hotel room on a business trip. It was the heavy, suffocating silence of a home that still smelled of her perfume and held her favorite mug on the shelf, yet remained devastatingly empty. In that silence, I understood something very simple but utterly shattering about the life I had built. I looked around at the house we had renovated, the expensive car in the driveway, and the career that had demanded so much of my time. I realized that all of it, the money, the social standing, the physical structure of our existence, was nothing more than a set. It was a well-built, expensive and solid set, but it was just a stage for a play that had stopped running. I had spent decades polishing the furniture and fixing the walls, thinking that the set was the story. I was wrong. Barbara was the life. She was the actual pulse of that house. Her voice in the mornings, the way she laughed at something stupid on the television, and the quiet way she would sometimes put her hand on mine for no reason. When we were sitting together, those were the moments that mattered. I didn't notice any of it when it was right there in front of me. I was too busy looking through her, focused on the next promotion or the next house project. I only noticed the life when it was gone, leaving me standing in the middle of a beautiful, empty theatre. I had mistaken the props for the purpose. I thought providing the stage was the same as being part of the performance, but a stage without an actor is just a collection of wood and paint. Without her, the house wasn't a home. It was just a hollow building, filled with things I no longer cared about. I realized too late that you can't live in a set. You can only live in the connection you have with the person standing next to you. I am 73 years old now, and the silence in this house has become my most constant companion. Looking back, my greatest regret is not about the money I didn't earn or the career milestones I missed. I don't care about the coat. I didn't buy her back in '98. What haunts me are the conversations I never had and the presents I never gave. I thought there would always be time to fix it, time to say it better, and time to finally show up properly. But there isn't always time. If I could go back, I wouldn't try to change the world. I would just handle a few small moments differently. When she came into the room to show me something, I wouldn't keep scrolling on my phone. I would put it down and actually look at her. When she went quiet, I wouldn't get irritated or ask what I did wrong like it was an inconvenience. I would just say, "Are you okay?" and truly mean it. I finally understand that she didn't need me to solve her problems. She just wanted me beside her. So I want to ask you one thing. When did you last really look at your person? I don't mean passing them in the hallway or giving a distracted grunt while looking at a screen. I mean looking directly into their eyes and actually seeing them. Can you remember a moment where you looked at them and thought, there is a living person right next to me? What is going on inside them right now? If you can't remember that moment, then you already have your answer. The door to my marriage closed a long time ago, and I don't ask her to come back. We talk once in a while now. A few months ago, she called just to tell me something funny our grandson said. We laughed for maybe 5 minutes, but when we hung up, the house felt quieter than it ever had before. Don't wait until the house is quiet to realize that the person standing next to you is the only thing that ever mattered. Real love isn't found in the big checklist of duties. It's found in the small, visible moments of genuine connection. Don't let your life become a well-built set for a story that has already ended.